Hi, everybody. Today we have some of our awesome mentors here joining us to answer all of your questions. Before we get started, I'm going to walk through the Avocademy Foundations program and the two different types of mentorship. So it makes a little bit of sense as they start talking about their experiences. And then we'll open it up for questions. So if any of you have questions as I'm talking, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll share those. So in the Foundations program, it's an 8-week program, so 2 months. And during that program, you are completing a set of activities. Those activities can be reviewed by Slack mentors or by Zoom mentors. So there's two types of mentorship. Slack mentors are providing feedback via Slack, and then Zoom mentors, you're meeting one-on-one on Zoom calls. So now we'll have you all maybe kind of like introduce yourself, tell everybody a little bit about what you do, what's your full-time job, and then what type of mentor are you? Who wants to go first? Maybe Jenny, if you want to start us off, and then pass it off to somebody.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny. I have been working in design for the past 5 years. In my previous role, I was the head of design for a healthcare startup, and now I am joining Avocademy full-time, so you will see my face often. And I have also worked with Avocademy for the past 6 months as a mentor, doing Zoom mentor calls. So those are more of like the one-on-one conversations. If you have questions about career, if you have questions about your like work itself, it's a really great time to talk with experienced mentors.
You want to pass it off to somebody, Jenny?
Yeah, I'll pass it off to Vanessa.
All right. Hey guys, I'm Vanessa, and I'm also a Zoom mentor. I've been doing design for about 8 years, and I'm currently a product designer at a startup company. So I'm leading everything related to design. My background as far as like organizations, I worked at Chewy.com, HBO, PwC. So I would say, you know, if you're looking for more of the UX kind of feedback, kind of like very deep product thinking, feel free to reach out. I'll pass it on to Radia.
Hi, I'm Radia. I've been at my current position for about 5 months now. I work at Xylem, which is a water technology company. So if any of you all are interested in the intersection between UX and environmental studies, feel free to hit me up. And I work primarily as a Zoom mentor, although I am on Slack occasionally. Cody?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cody. I'm a product designer at Straighterline, which is an ed tech kind of university-ish company. I've been doing that for about 4 months now. And I've also been mentoring with Avocademy for about 4 months as a Slack mentor. Yeah, that's me. All right. Last one. Vibha? Am I saying your name right?
Hi, it's Vibha. It was a really good attempt. You were almost there. Thank you, Cody. Hi, I'm Vibha. I'm a product designer at a software startup called Helium 10, based in California. And I've been at this role for about 6 months. Prior to this, I was a product designer in the finance industry, so fintech. I've been at Avocademy as a Slack mentor for about 2 months now. So anybody interested in design and the intersections of any of those fields would be happy to chat with you more about it as well.
Awesome, cool. So for those of you on the call, feel free to start dropping in your questions. I'm gonna ask a question that was submitted before the call. And it's, what does your day look like in your current job? For like, what does your design day look like? Not your mentorship day, but your design day. What does that look like for you all? And whoever wants to take it, go for it.
I can take it. It's actually a video on TikTok about that in our page. So my day varies depending on where we at in the product discovery. So some days could be collaborating with product managers or engineers or stakeholders, the people in leadership. And I would say 80% of my time is, or ideally spent doing designs like wireframes, doing research, interviewing people to know basically what to design or what to put on the product. So it's a little bit of a mix. So it really depends on what level you're on the design, I guess, like space. But for the most part, it's like 80%, again, 80% design and sort of like 20 or 30% doing research and collaborating with others.
I will add on to that, that a good part of the day is also working with members of other parts of the team. So as designers, we're highly dependent on the engineering team, on the product managers, on other parts of the business to kind of understand how our design relates to the bigger goals of like the company. So lots of collaboration, lots of meetings, lots of workshopping, lots of brainstorming. That's a good part of the day too.
And one more point to add to what was just said, all of the above, plus since I work at a startup now, a lot of it is process documentation as well for my team specifically. I'm the only product designer on my team, but I work with 6 others across the org. So it's a lot of sharing our obstacles and our resources just to kind of make it more scalable as we grow.
Radia, Cody, anything else to add? Different from what the folks said or the same?
I think, so one thing just wanted to add as a new product designer that was kind of a bit of a surprise to me was just how much time we spend on just like writing out like documentation and strategy and working on goals and spending a lot more work on the foundational side of designs before actually jumping into it. So I end up spending a good portion of my day like writing out documents, meeting with people to establish those guidelines and goals, and planning research and that sort of thing before actually jumping into design. But could be a position thing, it might change, but that's where it is right now.
Cool. We'll jump into one of the questions here. How did everyone get involved as a mentor with Avocademy? Maybe we'll start with Cody since you just went. We'll go background.
Cool. So I am a Avocademy grad, and so I had been pretty familiar with Avocademy for a while now, and really enjoyed my experience, especially seeing how willing the design community is to give back and to offer support and guidance. And so it's something that I really wanted to be a part of. So saw the opportunity come up and I took it.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same situation with me. I also am an Avocademy graduate, so it's really great to be involved on the other side of things and get to see student work and continue to grow and learn with students as well.
Vanessa, do you want to go?
Yeah, so I got into Avocademy because I know Maka from our last job together. I was actually looking to do something else during the pandemic as there was a lot of free time for myself and how to get more involved into the community, all this stuff. So actually Maka got me into mentoring during that time. And I was actually part of other programs like Springboard and other things like that. And I ended up just fully dedicating to doing mentorship with Avocademy because it felt like just the treatment for the students was different. The other ones felt more like a transaction versus here. So that's my story.
I also knew Maka. I also knew Maka through a friend. And I was working full-time at the time as a product designer, and I was looking for something a little different. I have been working design for years. I always loved kind of helping other students learn UX design. I just think it's an amazing skill to have, and I really enjoy working within the field. And I'm also a big believer that you don't need a formal education like a master's degree or a bachelor's degree, or need to spend all of that money to get a solid UX education. So just really into what like Mecca and like the larger team was doing here, kind of teaching those skills to people in a very like easy to understand, quick, efficient way, not like a tiered like master's program like I did.
Yeah, I found Maka and Avocademy because a mentor of mine sent me the job posting for Slack mentorships and Zoom mentorship, and they knew Maka, and I know the mentor because I transitioned through a boot camp, but it was an in-person boot camp, and I loved the concept of Avocademy in terms of like affordability and the curriculum. So really excited to have a chat with Alex, and that's how I ended up here.
Oh yeah, I think you all have like all sort of different but similar stories. There's a question here about, do you all currently work remotely, and how big is your team? So kind of jumping back to like your full-time design job, what does that look like in terms of team size, and do you work in office or remote? And maybe let's just go backwards. So Viba, if you want to go first.
Yeah, sure. So I work at Helium 10. We're a remote first startup. I joined the team 6 months ago. So overall company growth was at about 150 then, with I think 5 designers. Now we're at 300 globally with 8 designers. So the team is growing, but I think we kind of have our foundational designers set for the next couple of years now.
I think it's me. Okay. I did work remote, but previous to the pandemic, I always worked in office. The pandemic has really, I think, shown a lot of companies that we don't need to be located in the same geographical location to work. So a lot of the times UX jobs now are remote. I really enjoy it. I really enjoyed working remote. I would say that I prefer more of a hybrid schedule. Just from my experience, I like being around people during the day, especially during collaboration and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of it is about like personality, whether you like working remote, but there's a ton of like remote jobs out there that you can do your job very well remotely.
Cody next. I don't know, I said backwards, but I didn't remember the order. Cody, you want to go? Yeah. Sure,
I'll go. Yeah, I work full-time remote now, which I absolutely love. I think it's actually pretty incredible, the design technology that allows you to collaborate really well. Like I am constantly connected to my team the whole time. And then as far as team size, we are a pretty small company, like, I don't know, like 80 or 90 people. So it's just 3 people on my design team, director, a senior, and me.
Cool. Radia, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I do work remotely, which is great. My company's international, so we're also collaborating with people in different countries. So, without virtual life, that wouldn't be possible. And then in terms of team size, for the product that I work on as a product designer, there's about 5 of us, with 1 UX designer that works with me. But then in the company as a whole, at least in North America, there are 6 designers, principal designers, but then my company also contracts designers from abroad. So yeah, lots of different intersecting teams.
And Vanessa, I think you're up.
Cool. So it sounds like we're all mostly remote here. I'm also 100% remote, but my office the office is also open if we want to work from the office. So I'm also like Jenny, sometimes I like to be a little bit hybrid, going to the office, meet with the team, because I think it helps you create relationships with others. It's just a different way of style of working. Both ways for me are amazing, but if you get the opportunity to work remote, like I encourage people to, see if you can meet with your team in some ways. And some companies even give you the opportunity to travel and meet the team. So it's definitely very exciting.
Well, thank you all for sharing. So we got a really good question asked beforehand. So I'm going to ask you guys and then let you think about it while I answer some of the ones in the chat. The question is, what is the best question that a student has asked you during a mentor session? Or something that's a good question that's been asked to you during a mentor session. And while you all think about that, because I know it's not an easy one, I'll answer some of the questions on here. So there's a question that says, once you complete the Avocademy Foundations course and you are in Career Jumpstart, do you still have access to your mentor, or is that only for the Foundations course? So in the Foundation, one mentor, you can actually talk to all of these folks plus like 40 more. You actually get to talk to a mentor based on what you're working on. So for example, Vanessa, you talk to her while you're working on like UX. Radia, you talk to her while you're working on research. So the mentors are assigned based on a specialty, not per person. So you actually get to talk to all of these folks as you're in Foundations. For Career Jumpstart, we have a different set of mentors. Some mentors span both, but for now, almost all of these mentors are just in Foundations. Of course, if you build a good relationship with one of the mentors, I'm sure they're open to chatting with you via Slack or on LinkedIn or in any other way. I still talk to a lot of my mentees from when I first started Avocademy and like kind of worked with folks one-on-one a lot. So anybody have an answer to my question? What was a great question that was asked to you, or a good one or surprising one during a mentor session?
I can go. Maybe this is just like a general question, but I always really appreciate when students ask like, how can I learn more about X, or how can I learn more about Y? I think for many of us that have gone back to school a little bit later, it's like we get out of this like learning mentality. It's like we think that we have to front load all of our education and then we don't learn after that. And I think kind of taking a step back and like realize that like you're learning a new skill and like you're like setting yourself up for success, and it just takes a lot of like learning and being curious. So I think the students that kind of ask like, how can I learn more about this and this and this, are the ones that end up doing really well in the course.
Cool, I can jump in next. So to that, Jenny, yes, I agree. I love when students ask me like, outside of design, what are things that I can be doing to learn and grow? Because I think something about design is that people always misunderstand is design, product design or user experience design, user interface design. It's not like art. It's not like, it's about making it pretty, but it's about how to make design work and make the business grow. So I think the more you understand about like the business, the impact of what you do as a designer into the work that you put together and how to collaborate with others, the better designer you're going to become.
There was one that I got.
Oh, go ahead, Cody.
So,
sorry.
There was one that I got in just a DM. I don't have a lot of back and forth with students, but just about asking how to make their design inclusive and accessible from the start, which I think is a really great thing to start thinking about, because like it's more than just a buzzword. It's a foundation of good design nowadays, and so you don't. It's a little bit more advanced topic from the foundations, but it is a really good thing to start thinking about early on.
Actually, what I was going to say was around the topic of accessibility as well. So I'm for Slack mentorship, I've been focused on Model 4, which is more around wireframing. So I had a couple questions around, should I be thinking about this XYZ for a specific topic, whether it be accessibility or whether it be a different breakpoint, whether it's mobile or desktop. So just I really kind of appreciated the engagement and the thought behind such questions, which kind of shows that students are thinking about it from different angles and trying to solve for different pain points. So that's always really great to see.
Awesome, thank you guys. So we get this question a lot, no matter who we're talking to. So I'd love if you all could do like a fast fire go around. Do you code in your design job? Yes or no? We always get asked, do you need to know how to code to be a UX designer? So maybe we'll just do a quick go around, yes or no.
No.
Not at all.
No.
None.
Okay, cool. No one ever believes me, so I figured maybe like if I have five other voices, you don't need to know how to code to break into design. And we will teach you like responsive design and kind of like the design side of what gets applied in the development of work. There's also been like some really good speaker series. Actually, Vanessa did one on how to work with a developer. And we have a lot of other so speaker series, we do almost once a week. We have speakers from all over the industry come on and talk about different topics. And actually just last week, we had a speaker come talk about accessibility and accessible design. It was a really, really good session. So I'm glad that you all brought that up because I'm sure those students that were asking those questions enjoyed that, that speaker series too. Well, cool. What are the key success factors for those who want to achieve success with Avocademy? So maybe, I don't know if you all know the key, but what are some things that you see that students do that helps them succeed?
I think one big thing that I notice is being open to feedback and iteration, because a lot of UX is about having a design idea, bringing that idea to the table, validating it, and then getting feedback and iterating and doing it again. And being able to not be frustrated with that process and instead see it as a learning opportunity is really key to success, because that's what design is at the end of the day. And actually enjoying that journey is exciting when you can get to that point. So that's what I would say is one key, at least, to success.
I second that. That was very well said.
Yeah, anything else? Anybody else have any?
Yeah, I can jump in. I agree with you, Radia, 100%. I'm not sure how to describe this in a simpler way, but there's this thing being about being like a mercenary versus a missionary. So a mercenary is kind of like waiting, and this applies to like your role as well as a designer, kind of like waiting for people to tell you exactly what to do and how to do things, versus like being a missionary and kind of say, what are things that I can do to kind of like go above and beyond. Like I've seen some students kind of like, even when in the prototyping part of the course, right, where you create like almost like a real product, I get surprised sometimes, like impressed by the ability they have to like do their own research and kind of like bring something new and different to their prototyping. So kind of just you being as an individual contributor, like being on a mission to like kind of think outside of the box, I would say. I know that sounds a little like too high level, but that's how I see it.
I think also like the ability to learn new things. Like in this industry, things are always changing. And something that we aim to teach you all, right, is like how to learn. Because like we can teach you a design software, but like next project you may be using a different design software you don't know how to use. So like being able to like Google something as simple as that sound and like really watch some YouTube videos and learn something new, I think is also like a key to success. Like knowing what to ask and like searching for those answers, which is similar to what Vanessa was saying. Vanessa said it better.
No, you translated it for me. That's what I meant. Thank you.
What are some, we're going to switch gears a little bit to like when you all found your first design job. Question is, how long did it take for you to get your first design job? And what are the key elements that help you get that specific job? And maybe we can start with Roddy or Cody, who are like our newest designers.
Sure, I'll go. My job search took about 6 months. I didn't really like start pushing for it until the last couple of months. But I think there were a couple of things that helped me. Before I started transitioning, I started working with my company to try to do more UX kind of focused projects. So I was able to get on some project teams where I got to have some of that experience and lead it a little bit in a more of an informal level. So there was some actual like work experience to back it. But then beyond that, it was really just about volume. So I was sending out like dozens of applications every single day. I would get into a flow. And so I ended up doing like 450 applications, and it worked and got me the job. So yeah, it's a patience and time, but it will come.
For me, my job search was about 2 months, and it really is a numbers game. I think somebody told me it's not a matter of will you get a job, but when. If you put in the work, that is. And so a lot of applying, a lot of interviewing, and then it happened, and it was shocking and amazing. And yeah, the process goes by, and when you're in it, you feel like it won't. So. But it does, it does.
I transitioned to a full-time product design role, I think about 3 years ago. Prior to which, though, I was from a boot camp, so it took me about 6 to 7 months, but I was working on a role that was in the tech industry at the time as well. So the one thing that really helped was kind of having informal interviews with UX designers or product designers in my current role that I had access to, and kind of taking some of their tips into my interviewing process or my portfolio process. That is something that kind of helped me really learn what the day-to-day life of a designer is like and how it might vary from different organizations.
I'm having to think back to many moons ago of when I first got my job. I don't remember the exact, I would say like probably a month or two for me. I ended up actually finding my first job through my professional network. So I would say like a good piece of advice that I was given and passing along is like, try to be, when you are working in group projects. So like if you were to move on to the career jumpstart, a lot of the times like the people that you work with and you're kind of interacting within the course and in career jumpstart are going to be people that are going to be really helpful for you, maybe not in the immediate future, but in the long run in terms of finding jobs and finding new opportunities. I think a good professional network is like really helpful. And like luckily with Avocademy, you have tons of people around you that you can network with, lots of people that will have similar interests. You know, if you're into like the fintech, there's tons of people that are into fintech. If you're into environmental, tons of environmental technology people. And then in terms of what I think helped, I think when you're first starting out, like soft skills are really important. People will have an understanding of where your technical skills are at, and that's awesome. I think a lot of companies want to see that you have very much like a learner's mentality, that like when you get brought on, that they can help like teach you things, that you can provide value to like the company. So I say like, just like I would recommend for like the course, having like an like open mind and like a learner's like mindset. That's really important for especially your first role, where you're going to be learning a ton and it's going to be like a fire hose, just like, okay, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening.
Yeah, I can jump in. It's been a long time, but when I first started, design was different. So I think Maga and I always joke around, like we wish it was like this when we started, because I started doing graphic design and being a product designer was a pretty new thing. But honestly, I never had to worry about, being stable at my job. Like I never had any gaps. Like another great thing you brought up, Jenny, is that networking. Like a lot of my jobs later in my career have been because of my network and the people that I have been able to build relationships with. So that's super important. But yeah, I mean, there's so much demand for design right now. That's something I wouldn't even worry about.
Yeah, we see, I'll talk a little bit about like averages from our Career Jumpstart students. So we tell people that it'll take about 6 months to find a job if you're following kind of the advice we're giving you, which is it's a lot of applications like Cody and Radia said. It's doing mock interviews with some of our team members, design challenges, recording yourself, doing like your about me pitch. Like we have a lot of activities and things that we do to help you kind of be successful in that job search. We give you a tool to keep track of your applications. And then we look at it like analytically and try to remove the emotion from it, because it can be really exhausting to get, rejection after rejection when you're applying. So we've put together, I think, a pretty cool process to help you. And we're seeing the average salary of our grads is about 85K starting, which is 20K higher than like the US average, which is 65K. And it's taking about, on average, 3 months from when you start applying to find the job. But we say anywhere from 2 months to 6 months in terms of how long it could take you. And these past couple months has been crazy. We have people getting jobs within less than a month, which we don't promise that to anybody, but it just to show that like it is, the market is very, very hot right now in terms of jobs. So there's another question here. Besides Figma, AdobeXD, or Sketch, like the main design tools, what are some of the other tools you use daily or weekly in your jobs?
I can jump in. So it really depends on the organization. When it comes to tools, you're not always gonna have the luck of finding like an organization that kind of is 100% flexible on everything. But ideally, you want to make sort of your process, your research process, your design process, adaptable, or make your tools adaptable to your own way of working versus the other way around, right? You shouldn't have constraints with the tools that you work with. So apart from designing, you're probably going to be looking at doing research, right? So let's say you launch a new feature, a new product, there's going to be apps that track like what the users are doing. So you're going to be able to see or read like heat maps, how much time are people spending on a certain like page, right? Versus before they move into the next step of the experience, or things like that. I think it's what you're probably going to be looking at. And then the collaboration tool, like the whiteboarding, like Miro, a lot of that, especially when you're doing collaboration. But there's so many, I don't think I can call any specific name, but that's what you're going to be using. I'll call Jenny. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Jenny, take it next.
I read your mind. Yeah, there are lots of like design software. So there's collaboration tools like Miro that are really helpful for like remote workshopping. It does a lot of like diagramming. Imagine if you were doing like a sticky board and in person, you're putting like stickies up on like a whiteboard. It's like the quintessential like UX activity. This is like a virtual version of that. You'll also most likely be working in a place that uses Agile. So a very common tool that is used within the Agile workflow is Jira, and that's how you manage all of the tickets, how you communicate with the developers in terms of like what you're working on and passing off documentation. Some places may use some type of like a process documentation, like a Confluence, where everyone kind of keeps track of all their notes.
Asana.
Yeah. There are lots of variations. Yeah, it is highly dependent on where you work, like Vanessa said.
I think the two you covered all the ones that I use. One that I do use on and off is very similar to Miro, is InVision Freehand, but I've seen different orgs kind of prefer one over the other. But collaboration tools do vary like org to org. And I personally love Miro. It lets you do like a wireframing plugin, so you can kind of get non-designers involved as well and have them kind of lay things out on a field and on a whiteboard and have them show you what they're thinking.
For me, I use like almost exclusively Figma, and I do my best to actually try to do a lot of my work in Figma. So I'll put together like scope documents and all sorts of things in Figma because it's just so much easier to work with. But the one thing I want to add, which is kind of a design tool, not really, is Slack. Is like, I probably use that more than Figma just to highlight how important communication is in the job. Like number 2 to design skills. Because that is constant. So I'm always sharing documents through there, or commenting, sharing updates, and that sort of thing.
Cool. Anything else to add, Radia? They mentioned a lot of stuff, so it's okay if you don't have anything else.
I use pretty much those tools. I do a lot of research too, and so one research tool I really like is Dovetail. It allows you to get transcripts of your research interviews and sort of annotate and tag them. That's really useful. But there are a number of research tools like that.
Cool. Let's see. There's a question here about, do we see people transferring from service industry role to UX having success? We see all sorts of people in Avocademy, like all sorts of backgrounds. And yes, I don't think success is matched to any like previous role. We see people in the service industry, like retail industry, restaurants, like all sorts of backgrounds, teachers, nurses, healthcare workers. It's really about putting in the time and the work. And I think if you do those two things and you're open to feedback, like Radia said earlier, and open to the learning process, you can succeed in this field. We help people all sorts of ages from like 18 to 60 years old. So there's a huge range of individuals that go through our program. I think I answered the next question, which was how long does it take in a job to land a job after finishing the course? So we have UX Foundations, which is 2 months. We have Jumpstart, which is about 2 months of projects, and then 6 months of job search. So total, start to finish, you're looking at like 10 months, worst case scenario. Any tips from you all on freelancing and how to maybe get some freelance work while you're learning or doing Career Jumpstart? I don't know if anybody's done freelance. Maybe Vanessa's done. Yeah, I knew Vanessa's done some.
So there's a few resources out there. I mean, the common ones are like Upwork, Fiverr, things like that. There are other resources that are more like, I'm not sure if this is the right word to describe it, but more like corporate, where you take like bigger contracting jobs or bigger projects that can take like 6 months to a year. Again, like that's not really like freelancing, but it's some sort of like contracting temporary jobs. Some of those platforms are like MBO. I can't think of another one that comes to mind like right away. But I'm sure if you do like a quick research, that will come up. Now, the biggest thing is, as Jenny say, like your network. Like a lot of the freelance that I have done is because people know me, people recommend my work, and I have been able to maintain and build those relationships. So as soon as you start like, getting into the field or space of design, like even your mentors are part of your network, right? Don't think like just because you're having a mentor call, it's just going to be a transaction. We're not like teachers, or like traditional teachers, right? Where you go to school and you kind of maybe don't see them again. But ideally, you should, even with your teachers, like kind of like be building those relationships, because we're working on the field, we're seeing what you guys are doing. So network is going to be super important on that.
Yeah, I hired one of my first mentees on a freelance project that I was on, actually. And now so in Career Jumpstart, we do pro bono work for startups. And sometimes these startups want things that are like outside of our scope, or like they want too much things. So what we say is like, we can't do everything pro bono, but like if you're willing to pay somebody freelance, we can post a project for you. So just today, like we matched a student that actually already has a job but doesn't start for a couple of weeks with a freelance opportunity, paying like $25 an hour, which is like pretty okay when you're first starting out, to do like a landing page design for a startup. So like your network, I think, is where you'll find a lot of opportunities. Even now, like I'm always messaging Vanessa, like whenever you're looking for a new job, like here are 3 things, people I know in the industry that are hiring. I think network is super important for sure. Let's talk about portfolios real quick. So there's a question here about how many projects did you have in your first portfolio when you got your first job? And I think portfolio requirements have changed over the years. Like I can say like, I don't know, the last job that I got, I just put together like a PDF with samples of the work I had done the previous 3 years. And I was just like, take it or leave it. Like I don't have time to put together a portfolio. And I think that happens as you become more senior. Like you don't have time to update your portfolio and they don't matter as much. But maybe if we want to go around and just say like your last job, did you have a portfolio or not? How much did it matter in getting a job? And then for your first job, it's super important, right? Like that is the only thing you have to show your work experience. So maybe Cody and Radia can share a little bit about how many projects they had for their first job. But I don't know who wants to start.
I can start. I think I had 3 complete projects and 1 project that was sort of in process. And I think it's pretty common to have 3 to 4 projects. It's better to have less of higher quality than more of lower quality. So, you know, a recruiter doesn't have the time to look through every single thing you put out, so you might as well put out your best work. Yeah, that's been my experience.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think 3 was a very similar number is what I had. Yeah, and it does matter more at the beginning. Yeah, just but yeah, having 3 like really solid projects is like a good number to shoot for. And just know that like hiring managers, recruiters, they don't have a ton of time to really kind of look super in depth into everything. So a lot of like the presentation matters, so on and so forth. As you move through your career, it is less about like project basis. Yeah, it is less about like the projects and like the individual decisions and more like strategic. So I haven't updated my portfolio in a very long time and I need to, but that's neither here nor there.
For me, I only had 3 in my portfolio. And honestly, when we went through the interview process, we really only focused on 1 and just went really in depth on that one. The others were more of an exploration of like UI skills anyway. So it was that one really solid one. But having 3 to show that I have some diversity of work and a diversity of problem solving was also really helpful to show.
There's actually a Avocademy is doing like a really interesting facts on I don't know if it's in all of the social media, but I saw a post on the Instagram page about what are things to keep in mind when building your portfolio. One of them is kind of like don't overthink it. So kind of going back to what Cody said, like when you have your actual interviews, you focus on like maybe one project beginning to end because you only get like so much amount of time. And another thing you called out, Cody, earlier was the communications part. Like the more you're able to communicate and really validate what you made certain decisions on your portfolio, the less kind of like things you have to post out there because you're able to walk through it and explain it easily.
I agree with all that was said. I think when I started out, I had 3 portfolio pieces when I was trying to transition. But for the last job that I got, I actually didn't have a portfolio. I'm working, my previous job was under an NDA because I was in fintech. So it was more about being able to talk through the process, and I did a whiteboarding challenge in lieu of a portfolio. So that, I would say maybe that's something to also keep in mind, where if as you're going through the interview process, it might not always be a portfolio review. They might just be other interviewing formats. And for my org, we ask new UX designers to do even like a 20-minute whiteboarding challenge just to kind of see soft skills more than anything else in terms of how you handle stakeholder feedback and communication.
Yeah, I think that's great. We tell all our students to not start applying until they have at least 3 case studies. And I know that as you move up, like it doesn't, like people probably have like their first portfolio and then it never gets updated. I think when we like do hiring for mentors and we ask for portfolios, we know it's not going to be updated, and we're just like trying to gauge like what your work sort of looked like a couple of years ago. But yeah, I think if you're trying to break into the industry, you want to have those 3 pieces at least to show your work. On that note, there was a question that I skipped earlier, which was how many case studies will we have from this course, and are they different for each cohort? So the UX Foundations program, you do 1 case study end to end, and you actually get to pick the problem you want to solve. So that's actually fun for mentors because they're always reviewing something different. So you can pick which industry you want it to be in, what's the problem you want to solve, and then go through that for your case study. Jumpstart, we have, like I mentioned, pro bono projects for startups. So we post those into the Career Jumpstart Slack channel, and you can put your name for the ones you're interested in, depending on, if you're interested more in research or UX or which industry you're interested in. There was a question here too, what can we do with the project that we designed in the foundations course? Can we sell it later? I mean, sure, but it's more of a learning opportunity than like a product design or an idea. Like, I think foundations were really trying to get you to understand each part of the process, rather than like create a full application that you can sell or something like that. We do have some entrepreneurs that do the course just to be able to like start designing their app themselves. But for the most part, it's people that want to change careers, and you're here for the learning opportunity rather than like startup opportunity of sorts. Any tips, and maybe you all can maybe answer this question. Any tips for getting started in UX or preparing to start the foundations course? Maybe like one, we're getting to the end. Maybe this will be the last question. Any tips for people that are about to start the foundations course or are thinking about switching over?
I guess you go. I'll say like growth mindset in terms of just kind of be eager to learn. I know when I started, I thought I had an idea of what kind of designer I would be and which area of design I would lean into. But for me, it was about like keeping an open mind because it wasn't necessarily what I thought the more I learned. So just kind of be eager to learn as you go.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to summarize it very quick, like to what you guys were saying, like being open to feedback, you can kind of like training yourself in the way of like when you work in design, you're going to get and hear feedback from everyone from all different fields. And I'll say the highest value that you get out of the course is like talking to the mentors and learning how they will do or execute on things differently versus like learning the tools itself. So something Brian you saying, Maga, earlier was try to learn the tools as much as you can on your own time, because that varies by organization. And the biggest value you're gonna get out of here is gonna be your networks and what you can learn from the mentors and what they know.
I would add on to that, even before you start in the foundations course, there is so much information about UX out in the world. Like if you like consuming information on YouTube, tons of great YouTube channels that are just on UX. I follow a ton of like Instagram people that are all about design. Medium has a ton of great UX articles, and they have so many different lenses. So if you're really interested in like healthcare design, there is just articles and articles and articles just on healthcare design. It's also good to start like looking at the technology that you use on a day-to-day basis and just like start to kind of deconstruct it, like what makes Uber really easy to use versus like your gym app, which usually they suck, it's like, what about, like start to kind of notice user experience, and things and like how it
that's really a really good one.
Yeah. I think it's really helpful and something that you'll do a lot as a designer unconsciously. You'll start to evaluate everything that you ever use in the world of like, is it good experience or is it a bad experience, or what would you do differently? But like starting soon is always helpful.
Anything else, Radia, Cody, something you wish you would have done before you started Avocademy? Or was Avocademy awesome? You didn't need to do anything before.
I mean, Avocademy was awesome, absolutely. And I remember before entering the course, I did watch a lot of YouTube videos. I love podcasts. There are a lot of UX podcasts out there. You can learn a lot. Just sort of getting excited to exist in the space. There's so much out there. So, why not dive in?
And I know we talked about not focusing on tools, but it would help to learn Figma. Just get your hands in there with Figma, because then when it comes to wireframing and stuff, it's just going to make it go a lot faster once you get familiar with some of the basics. And it's taught in the course, but you know, Figma is something you can start learning without knowing product design. So something you can do.
Awesome. Cool. I think we're at time. I left on the chat here. If any of you have questions that we didn't get to, feel free to email info@avocademy.com and we'll get to those. Thank you everybody for joining, and 5 awesome mentors for joining as well, and you know, providing your wisdom and knowledge to these folks. Awesome. Bye, y'all.
Thanks for
Bye,
listening.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.